Hey, sports fans, welcome on in. It is the Down and Dirty. Scott Mitchell, Herman Moore, depending on if you look at things right or left. I'm on the left, he's on the right. Don't confuse yourselves because we do look alike. No, we're not related, but we do like each other. So welcome in. We're going to get down and dirty today. Herman, I have the special occasion of being right next to you. We're in the same studio, literally right next to each other. I can go like this, boom, hit him right in the mouth if he says something wrong. What's up today? How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I can also stick that hand over there and bam, bam. You like that? That's the way we do it, man. We like to do things like that.
I love it. All right, we got a fun show today, and so glad and happy that you're joining us. Really are. It means a lot. We get tons of comments. We're going to actually talk about comments today in a little bit. We like the good ones, the bad ones. We'll take them down and dirty. We get a lot of good ones. We get some fun bad ones, and that's how life is when you put yourself out there like we're doing. So we'll get to that. We've also got some really, really interesting stats going on in the world, which we want to talk about. And then, of course, we're going to talk about this in the very beginning. All right. NBA players basically get away with murder, and it's so freaking annoying. I believe we have a little video clip here to show you exactly what we mean.
Goodwin try to overplay Morant. Here it is.
Is there travel here? Is there travel here? Is there travel here?
Wow.
Heck yeah, there's a travel there.
Wow. That is, I mean, no whistle, no anything. I mean,
Bojanovic had some good moments in the game
dribble
against the Clippers. Anthony with a nice defensive play. Fires up the three.
this is hilarious.
This is like Ronald McDonald shit.
Marion also on this Cleveland roster.
I mean,
4 points.
Yeah, this is supposedly one of the greatest of all time.
this is, it always fascinates me, man. It happens all the time, and I just can't understand it. Like,
Anthony gave up.
do they fall asleep at the wheel? Like, what?
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
come on, man.
No whistle. Back to Augustine, who walks with the ball.
You notice the Ronald McDonald shirt? Like
Right.
he's a clown.
Yeah,
right?
clearly
He's clowning.
Four times.
This got to be right. This got to be Westbrook. I remember this. I mean, come on, man.
That's like he's playing pickup basketball, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll check it at the top of the key," kind of thing. So the guy with the shirt on to start with, has a he's a McDonald's shirt on, right? And so Ronald McDonald is a clown, and he's totally clowning the NBA. And you watch this just kind of buffoony guy introducing each one of these clips, and you look at him and you go, "That's so ridiculous. That's so blatant." And he literally he's mimicking exactly how these players are just getting away with murder. It's embarrassing and it's ridiculous. I can't fathom how. And then the officials are just looking at it. They're looking right at it, and they're not even blowing a whistle, doing anything. They're just like, "Yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want."
The fans used to actually be up in arms about it, but they know that their players on their team do the exact same thing, and they get away with it. The coaches, it surprises me, like no one really goes overboard to just point it out. You see the players pointing all the time, but I think they know that, you know what, we all walk, we all travel, we all double dribble, we stand in the paint forever. We do all these things. Like there's so many rules that are being egregiously broken that I don't even know, how do you go do a camp? How do you as a professional even go out there and say, "Listen, kids, here's the rules to the game. Let's teach you the basics, the details of it." That'll be like me saying, "Let's one hot passes to me. Let's false start.
Right.
Let me show you how to just do things that are just, you're breaking the rules. You're going to get penalized all the time." And man, it's just, that's why when I watch some of these and I can't, I'm just dumbfounded by it. And I don't care if people get mad about it. I do go in on basketball a little bit, and it's not so much that players are doing what they get away with. But when you see it, it takes so much away from the game to go like, how is that even possible?
So there's an interesting thing happening in Major League Baseball. This automatic balls and strikes is actually making the game better. Like, it's not being met with, "Oh man, this is terrible," and you're embarrassing the officials, and it's not it's working. it's working rather nicely. And you have to wonder, like, what kind of automatic balls and strikes, or, you have replay challenges in the NFL. Maybe the NBA needs to look towards some kind of technology, because if these officials can't see this, they can't, clearly that's traveling, or that's double dribble, or that's triple dribble, or whatever they're doing. You wonder if that might be part of, because look, as a fan, we are not stupid. Okay, we're not dumb. And it's really an insult into our intelligence, because what we're saying when we put down a lot of money to go to a game is we want excellence. We want to see the best at their best, doing the best. And we know from the very beginning of when we started playing basketball as small kids what traveling was, what double dribble was, all these things. And it's embarrassing. Most of the times when these guys do it, they actually, you saw it, they were missing the shot. They were just, and it makes you roll your eyes, and it makes you go, yeah, I don't really want to tune into that. I don't want to be a part of, well, there's kind of rules, but there's kind of not rules. And then I'm thinking, Herman, as you were bringing up, it's like, well, shoot, what can we get away with in football? You throw the ball
Not
and
like that.
and you drop it, and then it bounces on the ground. You pick it up again. Hey, that was a catch. That was a complete, like, they're so picky in the NFL about the definition of what a catch is, and they go in slow motion. It's like, did he keep the control of the ball all the way through the action? As he went out of bounds and he hit the ground, is the ball juggling anywhere? I mean, they're so meticulous about the greatness of it. I would love to just, throw the ball past the line of scrimmage, have the white, like they do in Canada. Like, there's no motion penalties. There's no offensive tackles. Hey, you know what? You can line up in the backfield with the running backs. That's how far off the line you can get. I mean, how far does the idiocy of these penalties go? And, like, let's put them in our sport.
If you look, if we were to take and put it and we parallel it, and we go, that would be like me lining up completely offsides. Does it occur in the NFL? Absolutely, it does. You can tell some guys are they missed the call. The guy's clearly offside. You can see that sometimes there's a false start that happens, but it's just not at the optics that you see in the NBA. You're looking, there's 22 players, and then there's 10. And then when you're there, it's in a confined space. It's not as wide as the NFL field. You don't get a lot of people moving around at one time. So it's a little bit easier to dial into certain areas and know where things will go wrong. But in here, there's so much that's happening that it just really puts a tarnish on it, because you're wanting to look at it from a professional standpoint, but it becomes a circus because of what they get away with. Your star players are some of the ones that get away with it the most. And the other thing you'll see is that the lack of effort sometimes after a missed shot. And people can get mad about it, but when you see it, you call it, you can call it, you can see it. If you don't like it, then change it. Do something different about it. This isn't an athlete getting on another sport or another athlete saying, "Oh, our sports is holier than ours, and it's better than those sports." No, we have our problems there, but you can see that they're not letting it get away. And you mentioned this. You said, listen, the players, I think it's going to be harder for them the longer it continues to happen. It is only getting worse. To all of a sudden now put down the clamps, it's going to slow the game, because you're going to be able to call travel all the time, carry all the time. These illegal things that they're doing that should be flagged, not like in football flag, but called. You get the call. It's not gonna. It's gonna slow the game down, because these guys are so used to bending that rule and not having to worry about it. I don't know if they can self-correct at this point.
Well, you get the call, like a ref calls traveling or whatever, and you get this just stink eye stare from the player, like, how dare you? You're like, I'm the greatest in the world. That's not traveling. I don't travel. I don't do that, and yet they do. But when they are called for it, they're almost challenging and calling out the officials so often. Going back to the NFL, and I think it's human nature, right? We're going to try to get away with whatever we can get away with, like the offensive lineman, putting his foot back or getting as far back from the line of scrimmage as he possibly can in situations, or we're all looking for that edge. We're all looking for, but the NFL ultimately goes, yeah, that's too far. You've gone a bridge too far. You've pushed the spirit of the law just a little bit too far, and we're gonna get you. The NFL is great at policing action. And then you go to the NBA, and a lot of the better players in the NBA right now are foreign born. And when they learned basketball, they learned fundamental basketball, and you're seeing fundamental basketball kind of taking center stage. A lot of players from the United States, their game is just it's sloppy.
It's playground.
Yeah, and it's like, and maybe it's entertaining, maybe it's not entertaining. I look at how many steps they take, to make a shot. It's kind of that little two-step hop back to shoot the three kind of play, and it feels. I think it's not traveling, but man, it sure looks like a whole lot of steps there after you've gathered the ball. And then, of course, the one that gets me the most, Herman, and it's the whole idea of flopping.
Yeah.
Like I just like and try to draw a foul off of a silly action, where a guy, instead of having his hands at his body, he kind of has them out, and the old Chris Paul sweep across his hand like he's going to shoot the ball, and they call a foul on it. It's just those are the ones that really irk me the most. But and you can certainly comment on that. But I'm curious, is international basketball, is fundamental basketball, is Nikola Jokic, a lot of passing, a lot of fundamental is that the trend? Is that the thing that maybe can bring the NBA back in check?
When I started playing basketball and used to do it at the playground and all those things, and I started to get into organized sports. And the one thing that we dealt with the most was discipline. It's taking it piece by piece, understanding the rules, understanding your pivot, your certain steps, the way you could dribble, what was carrying the ball. Like, so you understand this. I think all of these individuals grew up understanding the rules. You can't play any sport without understanding the rules. What causes them to all of a sudden say, I'm going to not just push the envelope, but I'm just going to continuously and purposely break the rules and dare you to call it, or dare you to do it. Think about it. You look at high school, they call it. You look at collegiate basketball, they are still practicing the fundamentals. The coaches are showing how you keep your feet set, how you're hustling on the opposite ends of the floor, and you're doing all these things. And then all of a sudden you get to the professional level. I don't know if it's that they're looking and saying, now I can go here and get paid, and then just kind of free play and remove all of that. We even see it happen in the NFL to a certain degree, but then there's the rules set in to self-correct them and say, okay, you may think you can get away with that. You may see some of these other players, occasionally these calls get missed, but don't think that's the norm. And they set that as just kind of the foundation of it. But the NBA has completely turned a blind eye, and it's almost like they're cherry picking whether it's called. And I think it trickles down to the officiating too. I think it gets to a point to where it's not just the players, it's the whole entire foundation and fabric of the sport itself that starts to come apart. But yeah, to your point, you talk about the international players. Yeah, they're coming in because they only know to do it this disciplined way. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I've been overseas and I see how it goes and their league's better or different. I don't know the training regimen. I'm not gonna even pretend to do that. But what I do know is what I see. What I do know is when I'm sitting there, I just don't see a product beyond entertainment that really shows me skill set through and through. A lot of people will say, listen, look at how that person, plays with the ball in their hand. Look at how they shoot. Look at how no, look at the total body of work. Look at the total body of work. We look at our offsides. We look at our penalties. That's in our stat sheets that you can look and see how often we stalled a drive. And those are turnovers, when you travel or when you carry or when you do, that's a turnover. That's a change of possession. All that stuff counts in terms of the total body of work of that player. And then when these officials are getting graded, just like you do in the NFL and these other sports, like who gets to go and be in those big games, surely the best of the best in officiating can catch this as you get into those bigger games, but it still continues.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are interesting there that you said. One is about a whole body of work, right? And as a player, as a wide receiver, they go, well, you just catch the ball. And it's like, no, you actually block and you there's more to what you do. And, even sometimes you run with football on a reverse. There's a whole lot to every player on the field, their game. Offensive linemen, even though they're always blocking, they're doing run blocking, which is a totally different technique than pass blocking. And one you're going forward, one you're going backward. And it's a real thing. And you've got these super athletes, super strong players. I mean, you have Reggie White lining up on the other side of you, and sometimes you're going to run into him, and sometimes you're going to retreat from him. That takes a tremendous amount of skill. And I think that's the same thing with basketball players. So many of these players go, yeah, I'm offensive minded. I don't really do defense. I don't really, I'm not fundamental. There's certain players, that are point guards, and it's like a lot of their skill is passing. John Stockton made a Hall of Fame career out of being an unbelievable, phenomenal passer. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Larry Bird could shoot the eyes out of it, but he was an incredible passer as well. Or you take Jordan, and Jordan, Jordan loved defense as much as he loved offense. And he's like, I'm going to lock you down. I'm going to shut you down. You're not going to score on me. And then I'm going to go down the other end of the court, and I'm going to light you up. And that's what people really respect and appreciate, is that full game. But there's also the Jordan component to this. And it's like, referees look a little different. They go, yeah, I didn't quite push off on Brian Russell on that last shot to win game 6 of the 97 finals. It's not a play I'm still bitter about. But and I know officials, right? They I don't know whether the league tells them or whether they're just enamored with the great players or whatever, but there are fouls, there are turnovers, right? And then there are fouls and there are turnovers, and there's rules violations from great players, and they're not the same. And come on, we all know it. But are we okay with it? Is it okay to do this?
So here's something that struck me. Don't you hate the saying when they go, let them play?
Right.
Like, shouldn't you let them play at the blow of the whistle when you first start the game to the final part of the game? Where is it that you're changing the rules? You don't call certain penalties, or you don't call certain calls in the last 2 minutes or in the critical 4 minutes left in the game in football or whatever. No, it applies through the entire duration, start and finish of the event. That's the subjectivity that I think brings in the inconsistency. It muddles the rules. It creates a separation of those that say, hey, I am going to be that disciplinarian. I'm going to be the person that is going to go by the rules. I'm going to do it the right way, to those that say, you know what? I think these are a little relaxed. I even heard that, I don't know if it was the NBA or one of these sports, where they said that I think the officials actually admitted that either they're told or it's a pact that they've made to let certain players play, and that you don't want to slow the game down. You don't want certain players, whether it be falling out of a game or being kicked out of a game because of a certain behavior. Because you look at some players and you go, that's an immediate ejection. Or you look at some things in football and you go, that should be a flagrant, or that should be someone that's been warned, or they're going to be kicked out of the game. It doesn't occur, because it does change the game in that level. And I think it does bring in some credibility issues, because that's a person making a subjective call. They're not looking at it objectively and saying, this person had an infraction, and this person, broke the rule, and therefore here's the punishment or the penalty that occurs with that. And we just don't see that being applied in a consistent basis. I just think it sets the wrong precedents, and I think it sets up that room for what we see, and it's just not very good. Like, I cannot stand when a person, they're hustling, they're going crazy on the offensive side of the ball or the offensive end, and then all of a sudden it's a defensive play, man, they get pushed or they miss a shot or they feel like they should got a call, and they just walk back up the court clearly, and they do it repeatedly. I don't mean just, okay, I'm frustrated in this one instance, this one moment. It repeatedly is something that becomes an MO of a player, and it's acceptable. And then we still say great, and we still say superstar, we still say icon, and I just don't understand how we volley between that back and forth.
Yeah, I think I agree with that wholeheartedly, and it is annoying, and it's disrespectful, like, to the league. It's disrespectful to your craft. It's disrespectful to the fans, everyone, because again, these are the best players in the world, and they should be playing at their best all the time. That's what we tune in for. That's what we expect. That's what we pay for. All that stuff, and it's massively disrespectful and should be policed internally from the players. Another great point you brought up is that drives me. I can't fathom this, right? To this day, and I know it's been a part of basketball forever. I don't know how. Maybe it's from its inception, but it's one of the few sports where, without doing something like punching someone out or something massively egregious, you can actually get. I don't want to say ejected, but you can foul out of a basketball game. Like you're gone. And maybe the officials go, we can't have our superstars not in the game because leagues are built on superstars. I guarantee you the rules are different for stars. They just are. Coaches treat stars differently. I mean, it's just the way it is. But that's what the popularity of the game is about superstars getting special treatment. But how you can't kick out the best play. You can't kick people out of a game just because they foul a little bit. Or to your point, it's a subjective nature, and so some guys are getting more calls than another guy, and just because, well, I just because I want to do that, maybe it's not a foul, but sorry, and now you have too many fouls, you're kicked out of the game. That's like BS. I don't think they should foul players out of NBA games, and you make it a little different, right? You make you like give the other team an extra foul shot or whatever, but don't kick them out of the game.
You got to kick them out because that's a competitive piece. That's where you create the advantage. I'm gonna go, and that's strategy. I'm gonna go and get your big man out of the game. Yeah, they're shot blockers. They're aggressive players. They're out of position or whatever. I'm gonna attack the rim because I want to get that third foul. I want to make that person have to go sit on the bench because that gives me a competitive advantage. That becomes part of kind of the strategy. If you look at, when they talked about the Pistons when they were going against the Chicago Bulls or Boston and some of these teams, they went in, they purposely wanted to play hardball. They wanted to go in and foul. It was entertainment. It was strategy. You bring in a Dennis Rodman. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to irritate Shaq. I'm going to irritate your big man. I'm going to go in there and all I'm going to do is dive after balls. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to play defense on the other end. You're not going to have to worry about me scoring because I'm not going to really try and score. But man, I am going to run crazy. Dennis Rodman was one of the players that I said, listen, when I saw his game, I was like, I get it. Do one thing or a few things really, really well. And not only are you being defensive star, you're going to be a defensive star. You're gonna get that stardom and recognition. You're gonna become the disruptor. You're gonna become the guy that teams are gonna have to strategize, game plan, and say, you know what? Do not let this guy get under your skin. He's gonna go after you. And Phil Jackson going, you know what? You got 5 fouls and you got some flagrants in there, and I'm willing for you to use those as disruption because what that's gonna pay back is you're gonna take the other team's top people mentally out of the game.
Karl Malone.
You're going to get their rhythm off. You're going to sit there and you're going to also, get the fans, thinking, you're just going to disrupt one player that's not even scoring. It's disrupting an entire game. At the same level, you get your superstar, global billboard players. And that's what I'm saying I love about it. So when I see these guys out here that are calling themselves superstars, but they're only doing this thing over here, but they're not really leaning into what they have the ability to play really solid defense, but be excellent offensive scorers. Dennis Rodman was never going to be a double-digit guy. He said, I will never get tired, and I'm going to run. I'm going to be all over the place. I'm going to act however I'm going to act, whether it's an act or not, and I'm going to own it.
Yeah, no, and rebounding genius. I mean,
watch. I forgot about the rebound. Rebound at his size. Yeah.
Look, I appreciate your comment. I do because I know one of those guys. I know one of them. So I used to play basketball after I retired from the NFL. I lived in Orlando and go to the YMCA and play three days a week. Really fun, great basketball, but a lot of really good players. And one of the guys that showed up was Greg Kite. You go, well, who the heck is Greg Kite, right? He was a backup center for the Boston Celtics that you mentioned. And so I'm playing with Greg Kite, and he's 6'10". I don't think he shot 10 times in his career in the NBA. Like he was a defensive rebounding genius. And so the first time he comes into the gym, he's sitting there dropping down 15-foot jump shot, right, left, doesn't miss a single beautiful shot. And I'm like, I've never seen you. I never saw you in your career shoot a shot like this. And like, you're really good. And he goes, wasn't my role. He says, my role was to go in and beat up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. When we play, he goes, that was my role. And he did it. And he had, you know, because Kareem, like, man, he doesn't want to be dealing with some, you know, 6'10" big old bulky guy that, you know, people might argue, does he really belong in the, you know, and he got under his skin. By the way, Dennis Rodman got under my skin, and I wasn't even playing, but I respected it. And to, you know, to your point, Dennis Rodman was a very important part of why those Bulls teams won championships. Like, he was a vital, critical, had to have role. So I get it. I really do get it. But I just think there's got to be a way to keep people in the game. So
I'll mention this, and then we can move on. But you know what else was interesting is every team had a unique type of bench.
Yeah.
Right. The bench players who came in, they were different. Like, now when guys come in, they're just people, right? You just go, especially if they're not a player that is recognizable, that played on another team. They're just, you know, in that second lineup rotation for a team, and so on and so forth. But it used to be when they rotated, sometimes they rotate 4 guys in. They, you know, now it's, you know, it's a guy here, or you're bringing in 3 to 4 players when the game's over, or it's just something's going on that, you know, it's nothing they're really playing for. But it used to be, it was actually a strategy. Your guys played so hard on both ends. And I actually think that's why substitution was really important back then, because if you look at that, you would bring in multiple players of substitution, because those guys played both ends and they hustled, and you were going to get tired. You expected to get tired. You didn't want to put too much wear and tear. So you had that other lineup that was able to go in, the BJ Armstrongs, you know, you bring in Purdue, you bring in some of these others, right? And they come in these spot plays, and they run a whole different offensive system. But they weren't necessarily not running the offense or doing it because there was foul trouble or because there was anything. It was part of the strategy. Now, guys are just glorified cheerleaders. I mean, you see them on the end, man. It's like, you might as well just give them their cell phone, let them get up and just take pictures and, yeah, you know, or whatever. And it's just like, it ain't that much cheering in the world. I get it. But it's completely changed. And you just don't expect anything out of those guys coming off the bench. And then when they show the stats, let's see how this bench play has been versus this bench play. I'm like, yeah, I mean, really? I mean,
yeah.
So it's a lot to be. Listen, yeah, we're going hard in the paint. The NFL is the top sport. We are top dog. We're our king of them all, y'all. And we have our flaws as well. But I'm just telling you, we don't have time to play the games that we see played in some of these other places where it's just not at the same caliber. It just isn't.
Bill Laimbeer, Dylan Brooks, those just hateable guys unless they're on your team. Like, that's what it is. And anyways, game's changed, but play it right. That's all I got to say. I'm sure Herman feels the same way. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, what do we have? Oh, we got some hot headlines. I got a really interesting thing for you, Herman. I'm curious if you feel this way. When some of the legends pass on, I always have this weird thing that happens. We'll talk about that and so much more when the Down and Dirty returns. All right, still going? So we're going to do the hot headlines. Here we go.
What is it?
Yeah, well, the Ted Turner one. Yeah, I'll just play it right out of the beginning.
That was a fun series.
Yeah, that was good. All right, here we go. Hey, sports fans, welcome back. Down and Dirty. Scott here, Herman there. So glad you could be a part of our show. We love you guys. We love you. And that's the most important thing we can do in the world today is love one another. So that's my encouragement word of the day and words to live by.
I mean, that sound like you sound like a politician on that one.
What?
That was I love. I
did not have.
All right, don't make you want to go Democrat? Don't make me go Republican. We'll be here all day. How much time you got, brother? We'll be here all.
I go both of them.
I know.
We had a conversation. We've decided that we are not going to talk politics on this show
or religion.
Yeah. Well, we do talk religion.
Well,
it's
I mean,
football religion. That's it.
A little bit. But
we got Rev Herm. He's gonna start preaching to us on on our day off, which is Tuesday. So Tuesday is the Sabbath of football. We've passed that day, but Rev Herm, he's gonna. Right now, we got what Herm do we have today? By the way, which Herm do we have?
You have UVA Herm today. I am kind of a hybrid. I am between my younger years coming here to Michigan to my earlier years at the University of Virginia. So you're going to get someone that's a little subliminal, but also that's got a little bit of edge, a little bit. I don't have time for any BS, but at the same time, it's fun. It's enjoying what we're doing. It's enjoying this show. It's enjoying being here with the people. We say that a lot. I think it's important. Some people will say that and they truly don't mean it. Like they have the sponsors. They have their list to go down. This is Scott and I. We talk about whatever we want to talk about, and we could do it at whatever level, at whatever length we want. But at the same time, we can enjoy it. We can enjoy it with you, and that's the fun part. So we'll keep rolling.
I have this interesting thing that happens to me, and I'm curious how you feel about this. And I haven't prepped Herman on this, so you can just say, "Man, it doesn't matter, whatever." I don't care what your response is. But for me, when a sports legend and icon dies, whatever it is, young, old, passes away, there's just a part of me that says, no, I get sad when people die, but there's an extra sadness for some reason when sports icons die. So Ted Turner, who was a pivotal person in in the sports world, and he was a very kind of down and dirty guy. Like he was bold, and he started CNN. He bought the Atlanta Braves. He was very much about, like, I'm tired of losing and I want to bring a winner to town here in Atlanta. So my question to you, Herman, is how do you react when these sports legends or these iconic legends in our society actually pass away?
I believe that we gravitate towards those that have been most influential, that we kind of align ourselves and our value systems closely to. And when I look at what we just saw with Ted Turner, I align because I'm a person who looks for legacy. I'm someone who looks for the results. You're going to try and do things as best you can. You don't always get the results that you want, but nonetheless, you have a certain something in you that will continue to push that drive that won't break you. And as he said before, he talked about his father, and you listen to the similarities. And again, that's what makes you just kind of pull closer to those iconic people, those legends, that in their passing, you realize you feel with them what they accomplished or the things that they endured. But then you also understand the purpose that was behind what they did and why they did it, and because it aligns with what your vision is and the way in which you want to be remembered. And when you can find individuals like that, yes, when they pass, you mourn with them. You feel that the world has lost leaders. They've lost people that have left their mark. Versus sometimes we get so captured and caught up into those that are splash points. They're made marketing individuals that serve the purpose of material things or money only, but not for the growth of our country, of our culture, of mankind, of being unselfish. And I mean, that's how I feel when legendary people, those that truly have left a mark. And sometimes there are some of the most invisible people that they're not in big bright lights like that. And then all of a sudden you hear in their passing all these amazing things that they did. Then that's when you realize, wow, the world, we really don't appreciate those that we really should be appreciating.
When I was growing up, they introduced a thing called cable TV, right? And they had a bunch of stations on there, and one was from Atlanta, Georgia, and it was the Atlanta Braves, and I became an Atlanta Braves fan just because of cable TV. And Ted Turner saw the vision of this and really capitalized. And so I've always been a Braves fan. And I see these people, so they created something in me that is dear to my heart. And I'm a sports fan too, and I grew up a sports fan. I some of those great Braves players early on were in the 80s and 70s were some of my heroes. And what happens is when a legend passes away, so whether it's someone like Ted Turner or, a sports legend or whatever, I feel like the potential of them coming back and doing something is gone forever. Like what they brought is just, it's over, and it can't come back. For there's this little part of me that says, okay, maybe I'll see it again, or it just reminds me that I'm never going to see the greatness of that player ever again. I look at like Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor's had some health issues recently, and oh man, he was my idol growing up. I had pictures of LT in my locker when I was, in school, and I just thought he was just the baddest, coolest, just the, like, man, it's LT, right? It just doesn't get better than that. And so, and you kind of hear the health scares and whatever, and you're just like, oh man, I there's just so many great memories, and it's just a weird thing I have. I don't know what it means, but I mean, I do know what it means to me, but I'm just wondering if, and it sounds like it's not the case. So I appreciate your thoughts on those legends and those legacy players and what they bring. And it always is a tender spot in my heart when these great players and great people leave us. We'll take another break and come back. Herman shared some stats with me a few days ago, and they're quite fascinating. I hope this doesn't feel self-serving, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's just really interesting. It's kind of some stats of our time together and separately when we were with the Detroit Lions, and kind of what they meant then and maybe what they mean now. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. Down and Dirty. Scott and Herman here, of course. Always glad to see you guys. Always glad you're here. Always glad to be here with Herman. We are actually in the same studio together. We can do stuff like that. And this is not AI. This is like real live. So don't mess with each other, or you're going to get one in the side of the face. All right. Herman had some fascinating stats. It kind of blew my mind, and I really want to talk about it here on the show. Really, I want him to talk about it because it's compelling. It's fascinating, and tells maybe a different story than what you hear. It's the stats don't lie. All right, Herman, tell us what you got.
Well, it always goes back because I started looking at why in conversation there's always this ranking, and we talk about teams, we talk about players, we get into statistics, and analytics are huge when it comes to debate, when it comes to grouping and conversation. And I look at how we choose to ignore certain stats when we want a certain narrative.
Right.
And it's amazing. It just amazes me how often it occurs, and that we become just such a lazy society when it comes to just we take in whatever someone tells us, and it's all about the marketing that goes behind it versus being able to do the research. We don't research as much as we used to. I'm a research person. I love statistics. I love analytics. I love business intelligence. And we come from a field where analytics mattered. We just didn't have access to the tools that are readily available for those who are really wanting to get involved with it and utilize that as a source of strength right now. So I started to look back because we always hear this, and I didn't really get into stats until people started telling like why a player doesn't belong in a certain classification of other players, why a team doesn't belong in a certain classification of other teams. And when I started seeing all that and going through that, I started saying, let me start to apply that. And before I do anything, I'm always going to look at it from an objective lens, not subjective, because my opinion is my opinion. I'm going to own it. Everyone owns theirs, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a source of truth. And we start looking at words like great. We start looking at the words like we'll never see a person like this ever again. This is generational, this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. But when you start to go back into the numbers where it's objective, you start realizing, no, it's been done before. It's someone else was the originator of that thing. Someone else did something that allowed a person to have to surpass it, and then that would then lead them down a path to say that's how we continue to raise the bar of greatness. It can be great at a time, and while you may not think the numbers still hold up in today's standards, or that team's way in which they went about getting their legacy wouldn't, we talk about, and this is where it came from, the Lakers. the Celtics, the Pistons, the Bulls, like these teams couldn't compete with the teams and the players. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. It's different. It's a different era, but they can all still compete. So I said, let me get a little bit more personal with it. So I want to start to apply it towards like you and I, our Lions team, teammates I played with, because they just, other than Barry, and I get it, like you just don't know about any of the other players that we played with. They always talk about that there were no other players. They had no team. If you had certain people around them, well, in most cases, during the time when we were at our hottest, when we were at our apex and at our pinnacle of being a team, if you remove the players that people say Barry didn't have and the Lions didn't have, you actually are saying, I want to go get players who were less productive. I want to get players who weren't as highly ranked or rated and bring them in as the substitutes to bring that new talent around them. Because when you have players, you have Kevin Glover, he's an all-pro center, he's a Pro Bowl center. You got Lomas, you got me, you got Johnny, you got Brett, you got Barry, you got all these players. And all of a sudden, if you start removing those, if you go back and look at the numbers, you're actually saying, listen, I don't want to have Scott Mitchell, who was the second ranked quarterback in all the major statistical categories, because I'd rather have him. Herman, if you'd had this guy down here who's number 10, you would have been a better player and you would have did more. No, it's not true. We had the team. We had the best of the best. It's just not in the narrative. It's just not there. We if anything, just say, you know what, we didn't get it done when we had a window and an opportunity. We see that happening right now with the Detroit Lions. This is a very talented team. When you look at how they compare to all the other teams in the league right now, you look at them and go top 5, top 10 team all day. But when you look at the teams that are winning championships and winning Super Bowls, those are the ones that are going to be remembered. Not all the talent and stacked talents you have. We've been there. We've seen the stacked talent. Until you actually cross that threshold, it doesn't matter. And so that was something I started to look at. And again, I started to look at, and I think people would be really amazed to see that you and I and our offensive unit and a lot of the players that were in there, even in combination, we were always in the top 10 and most of the time even in the top 5 as a unit. So who do you replace? Who do you get rid of? Who do you go get to replace and bring in that's going to make us better when we're already at one of the best, or in most cases, sometimes at the top of our category? So it was just interesting to me, and how loose it is. And I don't know how do you reel that back in, and how do you get people to stop being lazy and just saying, I think these are the greatest of the greatest and the most superlative, this, that, and the other, but they're not willing to do the work and they're not willing to go behind the numbers. Make that make sense.
It's fascinating to me. Like, I don't know that you fully understand the life that I lived with the Lions, and you saw a lot of it. Like I couldn't go out in public. I can't even begin to tell you how demoralizing it is to go to a home game and get introduced at a home game and to get booed. And this is before the game ever started. And to say, well, you're the problem, you're the reason that the Lions don't win, and it's the quarterback's fault. It's all this stuff. And to watch, to look at newspaper clippings and to see when we lose the headline, Lions get pummeled, and there's a picture of me, being sacked or something. And then on the wins, it's like, oh, the line, the elusive Barry Sanders leads the Lions to victory. And there's this pristine picture of Barry Sanders. And so the narrative from the media, the narrative from the fans is like, and as a fan, you just hear this over and over, and you just go, well, he sucks. Like the quarterbacks is just a problem. And then documentaries come out, and Wayne Fontes says, man, if we just had a quarterback, we would have been a great team. And if Barry Sanders had players around him, it'd be a good team. And the numbers don't say that. And that's really what you're saying. But from my perspective, so I go around and I feel like, man, I'm being gaslighted. Everyone's trying to tell me that you suck. Like, you're horrible, you're terrible, And after a while, you're like, it's like, it was the hardest thing in the world to deal with, just to maintain your focus, to tune it all out, to not listen to it. And I'm proud of it. I'm just telling you, Herman, and I'm very proud of what we accomplished here in Detroit. And yeah, I'll be the first person in the world that'll be the most disappointed that we didn't win a Super Bowl. I'm just telling you, it meant more to me and all this stuff. But I'm just so over hearing, that I was not this good play. I really am. I'm just tired of hearing it, because I know it's not what the numbers say and what we did here.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure, because I said, you know what, maybe I'm just jaded. I want to make sure I'm up here. I didn't play with, maybe Scott did suck. Maybe he was a terrible quarterback, because it's interesting, because it was only during a certain period of time. And I get it, but sports fans, they get very upset. They get very frustrated when their star players or the perceived messiah like you were going to be to come in and rescue us at the quarterback position, not realizing this is a team sport, and it requires all of us to do well. And we will look past numbers, and we'll create these mythical narratives that will put certain players in a certain light and put other players in another light, and then all of a sudden you've basically pull the team away, versus saying, listen, this is a total body of work. I talk about this with players, where the same exists for teams. Teams still have a total body of work. So from the coaches to the front office, to the ownership, to the players, to your star players, to star moments, to the key moments, to all those things, they all go together. The front office doesn't get to go to the Super Bowl and the team stay home. Your star player doesn't get to go, other than to the Pro Bowl and some of these other, single individual accolades. They don't get to leave and pull themselves from the team. So if the team's a loser, those players that comprise that team, they're all losers. If you want to comprise them as losers, you don't get to say these are losers, this guy's is a superstar. No, they're all losers. And I'm willing to take that and go that route with my team. Now, done that to a fault, to where you can be pushed on the outside because you protect and you're willing to stay loyal and honest to what you know is right, versus saying, you know what, I'm going to sell myself out, my soul out, just so I can be a part of the inner circle and the party. Not going to happen here. So in saying that, I had to go back and look and say, let me see if Scott Mitchell really sucked. And so I don't want you to think that I'm here because he's QB1 and I was his WR1, that this is a self-serving piece, but it's just to put that theory to test and to go out. And then, so I started looking, I had to show Scott this. I said, Scott, I'm gonna go back in, and we picked, the only seasons that were relevant were 94 through 97. And I said, let's take that, not him, that was me and our internal team. And I said, let's break that down and look and see really where he landed. And I just happened to be looking at the 95 season, which I thought was, I know you were an alternate for the Pro Bowl, but I thought you should have been a starter at the Pro Bowl that year. So all the major categories, you were number 2. Brett Favre was 1, and then there was some fluctuation with other people in that area, but he also ultimately was end up winning the MVP that year. He's Offensive Player of the Year, so on and so forth. And when I look at the list and I start looking at who's below Scott Mitchell, because everyone else go, if you had these quarterbacks, and all of a sudden I'm looking, there's Elway, there's Marino, there's Jim Kelly, there's Troy Aikman, there's Steve Young, Jeff George, Warren Moon. I can go on and on and on and on. And there was only one player that was above his name, and that was Brett Favre, which, by the way, I wouldn't switch over because it's just the chemistry. I know it wouldn't be the same. It worked for, Robert Brooks. It worked for Sterling Sharp. So that was my point, was to go back and go, look at how off the narrative really is about QB1's career. And then when you're trying to replace, what are you saying? We're going to replace and go get some others? The dynamics are not the same. So I only say that, and I encourage you all that are listening, and those of you that truly say you're sports fans, and that you're truly in the game, don't throw out silly stuff. Like if you truly want to have an educated conversation, if you're doing it for entertainment, I get it, that's cool. But there are legacies that are here that need to breathe. And when we make people not appreciate or feel appreciated for what they have done and their commitment to it, albeit it may have fallen short of expectations, does not mean it has no value. And that's not just talking about you, Scott, but that's including myself. That's including guys who don't even know who Brett Perriman was, who will forget who a Johnny Morton was, unless you're just a a fan that remember a certain part. It should be part of the foundational piece when we talk about our star players across the board. If you are a true fan of a team, it's not worrying about who's better than who, but look at the succession and looking at the quality of consistency of bringing in star players who can come in and elevate an organization. Why in the hell can we not do that?
You know, talking about 1995, and to start with, like I didn't bring this up initially. Like Herman said, do you realize?
I bring it up because it pisses me off. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It does not make sense to me.
So I'm not
why organizations and people and fans can't do that and realize this is your family of players.
And it's right. And it's one of those things where I still care about the Detroit Lions. I value my time here. I really loved it. Like I loved it. I was so in on winning. I pull for the Lions today. You know, I just absolutely think the world of Herman as a human being above anything else. But this narrative that often happens, and it's not just here. We're just using this as an example.
Exactly.
I mean, Jeff George. Like people hear Jeff George, that name, they go, oh, malcontent, this and that, whatever. I'll just tell you, I know Jeff George. I absolutely think the world of him. Like how he's perceived by people. And Jeff George, look at Jeff George's career, and he had an amazing career. Like, and here's the thing. So Herman brought up this part about 1995, right? And what people need to also understand, the offense we ran for most of the year and we had the success with, we didn't start until the fourth game of the season. We had the first 3 games of the season that we were still trying to find ourselves as an offense. We're trying to find ourselves as an offensive coordinator, as a team. How do we all fit together? What makes the most sense? And to his credit, Wayne Fontes said, man, what's going on with the team? And he had a meeting with some of the top players on the team. And the consensus from that meeting was, you brought this guy here to throw the football, let him throw the football. That's what came out of that meeting. And it really happened. And Tom Moore was our offensive coordinator. I've had Tom Moore on the Down and Dirty. And Tom Moore, I'm not making any of this stuff up. Tom Moore acknowledged, which he should, that his offense, his philosophy that led him to a lot of success he had later on in the NFL had its genesis right here in Detroit. Like, we were the greatest show on turf. We were doing something that nobody else was, and it had a short window, and that's unfortunate. That's the thing that I'm disappointed. It's like, man, if you'd have just kept him here, kept that offense here, kept us all here, we'd be having a different conversation today. I fully 1,000% know that to be. Look, when Bobby Ross came in after Wayne left, it destroyed all of us. Like, it killed what offense we had, what explosiveness we had, and it is what it is. But it's a different coordinator, it's a different system, a different philosophy, and it didn't fit the personnel that were here. So in 1995, just so you know, like, I mean, you talk about, for me, it's like, okay, like I was second to Brett Favre by a nose hair. Like, it wasn't like, oh, Brett Favre, like it's if within a 50 yards and maybe a touchdown here or there. And quite frankly, we had the same record as the Packers did, and they just happened to have the tiebreaker. Otherwise, we would have won our division. And Yancey Thickpin catch a freaking ball in the end zone, and we're at home for our first playoff game. But the thing that's just hard for me, and I don't, and I really appreciate, this Herman and whatever, but I appreciate the truth, and that's really what it is. And we were really good, and I was really good, and it's unfortunate it just had as short a window as it had, and just so you know, the next year, and people don't know this, 1996, we actually started off at the beginning of the year right where we left off in 1995. We were 4-2, and I actually tore a rib. I tore a muscle off my rib cage, and it was about 12 inches long, and I had to get a shot every day just to go to practice, and it was, I couldn't throw. I didn't tell anyone about this. I didn't say anything about this. I just tried to suck it up and grit it up, but it was brutal, and we had a brutal year, and unfortunately, that was the demise of Wayne and what have you. But it's just unfortunate that there couldn't have been greater patience, and really, to your point, and I love it, a lack of laziness. Like if people really look at a situation, really evaluate the talent, the team, and they go, wait a minute, we got something really here. How do we make this really work? How do we really make this sing? You and I mean, we were considered malcontents because we went into Bobby Ross's office and we were just trying to make our,
Oh, God.
like we were a thoroughbred
Oh, my
that they
God.
wouldn't, or a Lamborghini, they would never get out of second gear. And that's the talent that we had here. And I know the Detroit Lions fan, you take it for what it's worth, and you can think we're, trying to toot our own horn or whatever. No, we're just standing up for the truth, and we're standing up for ourselves. At least I am. I know Herman is too.
Oh, yeah, 100% will.
And so I just thought this was so fast. I didn't even know this. Like when you showed me these statistics and showed, we ranked inside the top 10, the top 5 teams offensively in the league, over that time that we played here and played together. And it was 4 years. Yep. And, give us 10 years, give us some more time and see where we get with things. And that's always been my gripe with things. And I just thought this was a very important, a very fascinating conversation to have, and a tough one too, just so you know, because I don't want to sit here and, because some people, well, stats are for losers, and you're trying to just, it's just like, I'm just telling you, the eye in the sky, the stats never lie, and they tell the real story.
Stats are for insight, it's for intelligence, and it's for removing of the emotional attachment, because this is an emotional piece. Professional sports and your favorite athletes and all the icons and all those things, there's a nostalgia to it. There's a personal attachment that happens to it, to where it's almost like your kid. I don't want to know that my son or my daughter wasn't as good as I thought that they were, or they didn't do the things that I thought that they did. And we can create narratives of being created across the board in all sports. It's done in all marketing and media departments for all teams. They try and take the good, they elevate, they take the bad, they try and get rid of. And I'm the type that likes to sit around and say, man, I wish, in looking back at my career, I'd approach some things a little bit differently. I wish I had done some things differently. When you can have that hard look and just say, you know what, you free yourself. You free yourself from being able to worry about the criticism and worrying about what other people will think, because you already know what you know about yourself, because you looked at it with a fresh pair of eyes. And I was able to go and do that and look back and go, wow, there's some things I could have done really, really well. And I could have done some things so much better. And I wish I'd handled situations a little bit differently and a little bit better. And then I use those, and I apply that to life now, and I do correction. I use the analytics right now, not to look there and to toot my horn or anything like that, but to say, hey, here's where the standards are. Here's what I'm capable of doing. And when we talk about teams, and the reason why I brought these statistics into this conversation today, it wasn't so much to say, okay, let me elevate you and make you feel better about your tenure here with the Lions, as much as to show that how things can get lost, and who should bear the responsibility to say, you know what, when you talk about these different players that came in and made these commitments, who's going to be the advocate in those? I think it's the team. Their PR, they're the marketing machines. Those are the ones who should set the narrative straight first. But quite often what we find is those are the ones that are feeding the narrative. We find out quite often those are the ones that are behind the backside of it, that is really pushing the momentum, because they need another narrative to be pushed. Now, you don't have to like it. I don't care. And I don't say that. People aren't used to me talking in that tone. But what you have to realize as you get older, people do not care as much as you think they care. And therefore, you have to care for the things that matter to you, and you have to be protective of those things. And if you're a person who deals in legacy, where do I land and where do I end up, and what is being said and pushed about me? None of us are perfect. We all have our bad. We all have our good. We have our all in between. But I will control that. I'm not going to live by the rules of, hey, you can't talk about. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Because if you can say I don't belong somewhere, I can say I do belong somewhere. And I'm going to take that voice. People who shy away from that, you're weak. And people who say, hey, you shouldn't do that, are people who don't understand how to live and breathe and how to protect legacy. And if they don't, that's not a conversation you need to have with those individuals anyway. And being apologetic is when you step over the line and you say some things like, that player over there is a terrible player and I'm much better, and ... No, we're not saying that. We're saying, listen, just as you talk about certain people, players, sparse or legacies in this vein, how can you exclude those who have the same, if not better, or the originator? I say this because Charlie Sanders came in. He was my coach, and it's important that I tell you this. And again, if I would love to hear your comments on this and what you think about whether or not players should have the ability to protect their legacy, or talk about areas in which they think that they are being underrepresented or served or spoken in, and all those things. And I think it is a responsibility of that player to also say, here's where I could have done better. I think you have to have balance. But I bring up this because Charlie Sanders, he was my coach, Hall of Fame tight end for the Lions. He was a well-loved alum for the Detroit Lions, a legend, pride of the Lions, Hall of Famer, All-Pro, Pro Bowler, mentor. When I came in, he had a different, a very original, but also a very specific way in which he wanted to grow us as wide receivers. He wanted us to have this toughness. He wanted us to be kind of almost that tight end grit and just physicality first, and then apply that to being a receiver and having finesse, but also not taking crap for anyone. Go out there and you set the tone. And then during that time, his records we started to creep up on his records, myself and Brett and Johnny, everyone, right? He was going to start to go from being the Lions' all-time leading wide receiver at tight end or pass catcher to all of a sudden have to take a back seat. And along that way, very respectful, very humble, very honorable person. And he talked about legacy. And I would always mention him and any of those that came before us who had records or set the tone. And you go look at the history. We had other Pro Bowlers. We've had other All-Pros. We've had other guys who were very great for their time. And I refuse to say I was the best receiver when they said, who's the best receiver in Lions history? I went with Charlie Sanders. I looked at his total body of work. You could disagree with me, but it was a responsible, respectful thing to do. And because I truly felt that and I meant that, and I still mean that to this day. I can't compare to what he's done. I can't remove him from the Hall of Fame. I can't say he no longer is a Lions legend or a leader because I've passed him in statistics. And that's the part of this piece of the segment I want to bring in. And I appreciate us giving the opportunity and the voice to it. But on here, again, it's not about being so in a box in terms of our conversation, but to make you think as you're hearing us speak and as you hear some of the things that we talk about on our show, the why behind it, the reason behind why we say what we say, why we're going down the path we go, and that it is not self-serving.
Well, I think too, very well said, by the way. But I think part of what you're saying is Charlie Sanders had a tremendous impact and a tremendous, life and experience, and he carried that experience with him to you, which you then carried on beyond that. And all, both of us here, we have our experience in football, and it's valuable, and it really is. It's like we've what we've experienced in football has relevance. Like we're not here trying to go, oh yeah, two old geezers, two has been whatever. Well, the has-beens are better than the never was, and our has been, our experience definitely has value today. I saw this with when I was with the Miami Dolphins, and the history of the Miami Dolphins went all the way back to when Coach Shula was with Johnny Unitas and Raymond Berry, and that offense and that system and that mindset started there, and then that carried into Paul Warfield, and Bob Greasy and Zonka and Kick and Morris, and then it went into Nat Moore and Jimmy Cephalo, and then that carried into the Duper, the Marx brothers, Duper and Clayton, and some of these other guys, and there was this greatness and this legacy and this experience that carried on, and speaking of, like, and you say, well, you guys don't know how the game is today, and it's like, yeah, we do. We know what the players go through. We experience that. That's what we're here. We're sharing what these players go through today and the mindset. Sure, the terminology maybe has changed, the rules have changed, but it's still football. It's still the same. This coordinator we had, Tom Moore, coached in the NFL for 49 years, and he was still relevant today, and the systems and the the concepts are still relevant and used today, and they'll continue to use. I mean, I'll give you a statistic here, and this is a great one that Herman Chrissy put together, and that's the one about Herman and Brett. Their combination is a wide receiver duel. So the yards, the completions in 1995, that season was the best ever, and continues to still be the best today, with all the crazy 5,000 yard, all these crazy stats that these quarterbacks, these wide receiver are accumulating today. From 1995, that record still holds today. So we're not has-beens. We're not here, and I'm tooting Herman's horn, but I'm also pointing a greater narrative here, and that is the old geezers with white hair actually have something that's very relevant to say. And quite frankly, we're going to have people on our show who are old like us who have something really relevant to say that you're going to want to hear. Did you have something?
People that really enjoy, Scott, they enjoy statistics. And that's what surprises me, is that maybe it doesn't get the same clicks, or maybe it doesn't put the same numbers there that are needed for sponsorship or to be able to monetize your stream or your ad or whatever it may be on your social channels. But because I don't understand why it gets pushed, but then it makes sense, right? It's marketing, it's media, it's driven in terms of narratives that want to be created. And the teams that are able to show that they have long-standing success, I think it becomes attractive to not only their fan base, because it rewards them to say, this is why you cheer for us. We haven't been as bad as you think. Maybe we haven't won the championships. Maybe we faltered at times of where it's been critical. But there's only two teams that can make it to the Super Bowl every year. There's only so many teams that earn the right to be in the playoffs. But along the way, in terms of consistency of return on the investment that goes there for the opportunity to say, we put a very solid, if not good, and I'll bet be a great team together. And we've seen over the last few years with the Detroit Lions, it only sows more into the robustness of your organization, the robustness of the story that you're telling. And you don't have to be the laughing stock when you start listening to the teams that have won Super Bowls to say these are teams that have always historically sucked. And that's just not true. They just have not crossed the finish line. And the goal is to win. But that's why the stats matter. That's why it's important to understand, like, why don't we do more? We will lean into some of the important statistics, not just the good ones too. I mean, we'll look at some of the bad ones, but you'll know what side people are on, because if they go, here's your good ones, but let's go in here, let's start to bombard you with all the bad stuff, then see how subjective that becomes too. Because I guarantee if it's a team sport, every single player on that team, you're going to be able to find something negative about them that shows that, you know what, they have some dents in their armor. I don't care who the player is. And that's what I'm curious to see, if we will go through we would take the same path to do the same, go with the same energy to show where there's those kinks in the chain.
I'll actually be happy to talk about the bad statistics. I really will. I think, because you say, all right, well,
I think it's fun. I think it's free.
No,
I think it frees
we're going to
conversation.
We are going to do that because it's a great conversation to have. It really is. All right. Really what I've gotten out of this segment is this is exactly what this show is about. We're not trying to spin a narrative. We're not trying to sound good and polished and say all the right words. We're telling you how it really is. That's the down and dirty. That's what it's really all about. It's about giving you not some spin narrative, but the real way and really how it is, and the way we see it in sports. And we hope that's why you tune in, because that's our promise to you, is to give it to you the down and dirty way every single time we talk into this mic. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell, Herman Moore. Thanks. That he's Herman over there. For him, I'm Scott. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Martin. Y'all have a great day. Until then, we'll see you then.